My father called me into his study 3 days before my wedding, and I knew something had changed. He didn't look at me when I entered. Just kept staring at the papers on his desk like they held answers to questions he hadn't asked yet. "Isabella," he said finally. "Sit down." I sat in the chair across from him, the same chair I'd sat in as a child when he wanted to discuss my grades or my future. The leather was worn smooth in places. I used to swing my legs because they didn't reach the floor. Now they did, but I still felt small in that chair. "There's been a change of plans," he said. I waited. My father was not a man who appreciated interruptions. "Valeria is in love with Claude," he continued. "She's been crying for 2 days. Your mother is worried about her health. You know how fragile she is." I did know. Valeria had always been the fragile one, the sensitive one, the one who needed protecting. I was the strong one, the capable one, the one who could handle things. "What are you saying?" I asked, though some part of me already knew. "Claude will marry Valeria," my father said. "You'll marry Park Jun-suk instead. He's a good man. Older, yes, but established. Respectable. It's already been arranged." The room felt very quiet. I could hear the clock on the wall, the same clock that had been there since I was young. It had always seemed too loud. "Does Claude know?" I asked. "Claude is agreeable to the change. He and Valeria have grown quite close during the wedding preparations." Of course they had. Claude had always looked at Valeria differently. I'd noticed, but told myself I was imagining things. Valeria sparkled in a way I didn't. She laughed easily. She knew how to tilt her head just so. People wanted to take care of her. "And if I say no?" I asked. My father finally looked at me. "This family has given you everything, Isabella. Education. Opportunity. A good name. Sometimes we must put family first. Valeria needs this. You're strong enough to adapt." There it was. The thing that had defined me my whole life. Strong enough. Capable enough. Flexible enough. I thought about arguing. I thought about standing up and walking out. I thought about a lot of things in that moment. But what I actually did was nod. "When do I meet him?" I asked. "At the wedding," my father said. "It will proceed as planned, just with different partners." 3 days later, I stood in the cathedral where I'd always imagined getting married. The dress fit perfectly because it had been made for me. The flowers were the ones I'd chosen. The music was what I'd requested. Everything was exactly as I'd planned, except for the man standing beside me. Park Jun-suk was taller than I expected. Older, yes, but not in a way that made him seem tired. He stood very still, very calm, while the priest spoke words that should have meant something. I couldn't look at him directly. I kept my eyes on the stained glass windows, the ones I used to stare at during Mass as a child. When the priest asked if I took this man to be my husband, my voice came out steady. I'd practiced being steady my whole life. Jun-suk's voice was quiet when he said yes. He had an accent, soft around the edges of his Spanish. He'd learned the language for business I would learn later. He spoke 4 languages, none of them perfectly, all of them well enough. We signed papers in a room off to the side. His handwriting was neat and precise. Mine shook a little, but only a little. The reception was the hardest part. Watching Claude dance with Valeria. Watching my father smile like everything had worked out exactly as it should. Watching my mother fuss over Valeria's dress and hair and happiness. Jun-suk didn't try to make me dance. He sat beside me at the table and occasionally refilled my water glass. He nodded politely when people came to congratulate us. He didn't pretend this was a love match. I appreciated that more than I could say. When someone asked how we met, he said simply, "Through family," which was true enough. Later, much later, when the reception was winding down and people were starting to leave, he leaned close and said, "We should go soon. You look tired." I was exhausted. bone deep, soul tired, exhausted. His car was waiting outside. Black, understated, clean. The driver held the door open and I slid inside, my dress taking up most of the back seat. Junseok got in on the other side, careful not to crowd me. We drove through the city in silence. I watched the lights blur past. I'd lived in this city my entire life, but it looked different through the tinted windows of his car. Distant. Like something happening to someone else. His home was in a quiet neighborhood I'd never visited. The building was old but beautifully maintained. The kind of place that whispered money without shouting it. "The apartment is yours," he said as we rode the elevator up. "I've already had your things moved to the main bedroom. I'll take the guest room." I looked at him then, really looked at him for the first time. He was looking straight ahead at the elevator doors. His profile was strong, his posture relaxed. He wore his suit like it was comfortable. "You don't have to do that," I said. "I know," he replied. "But I will anyway." The apartment was beautiful. Warm wood floors, tall windows, furniture that looked both expensive and comfortable. Everything was neat but not sterile. There were books on the shelves, plants in the corners, art on the walls that looked like it had been chosen by someone who actually cared about it. "Are you hungry?" he asked. "I can make tea. Or coffee. Or we have food if you want something." "Tea would be nice," I said, because I didn't know what else to say. He disappeared into the kitchen, and I stood in the living room, still in my wedding dress, feeling completely untethered. This was my life now. This apartment. This man. This unexpected turn. When he came back, he had 2 cups of tea and he'd taken off his jacket and tie. He looked more human without them. Less like a stranger and more like a person. "You can change if you want," he said. "Your room is the first door on the left. Everything should be there." I found my clothes hung carefully in a large closet. My books on a shelf. My photos on the dresser. Someone had unpacked for me, arranged everything thoughtfully. The bed was big and looked soft. There was a door that led to a bathroom with a deep tub. I got out of the wedding dress carefully, hung it in the closet, and put on comfortable clothes. Washed my face. Took down my hair. Looked at myself in the mirror and tried to recognize the person looking back. When I came out, Junseok was sitting on the couch with his tea, reading something on his phone. He looked up when he heard me and set the phone aside. "Better?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Thank you." I sat on the other end of the couch, keeping space between us. The tea was perfect. Not too hot, not too sweet. Just right. "I know this isn't what you wanted," he said after a moment. "I want you to know that I understand that. We don't have to pretend this is something it's not." "What is it then?" I asked. He thought about that. "A partnership, maybe. Or it could be, if you want it to be. No pressure. No expectations. Just 2 people trying to make the best of an unexpected situation." "Why did you agree to this?" I asked. "You could have said no." "I could have," he agreed. "But I didn't have anyone else in mind. And your father made a compelling case for family unity. Also, if I'm being honest, I was curious about you." "Curious?" "I did some research after your father first approached me," he said. "Before the change. You have a degree in literature. You volunteer at a youth center teaching reading. You speak 3 languages. You seem like someone worth knowing." I didn't know what to say to that. No one had ever described me as worth knowing before. Worth having around, yes. Worth relying on. But not worth knowing. "We don't have to figure everything out tonight," he continued. "You're tired. I'm tired. Tomorrow is soon enough to start working out how this is going to work." He stood up and took his cup to the kitchen. When he came back, he paused by the hallway. "If you need anything, I'm in the last room on the right," he said. "Sleep well, Isabella." "Good night," I managed. I sat there for a long time after he left, drinking my tea, looking around at my new home. Our new home. I thought about crying, but I was too tired even for that. So I finished my tea, turned off the lights, and went to bed. The sheets were soft. The room was quiet. And for the first time in 3 days, I fell asleep without having to pretend anything. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming through windows I hadn't closed the night before. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then I remembered everything. I could smell coffee. When I went out to the kitchen, Jun-suk was there, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, reading a newspaper. He looked up when I entered. "Good morning," he said. "There's coffee. Also tea if you prefer." I wasn't sure what you liked for breakfast, so I got a few options. The counter had bread, fruit, cheese, eggs. More food than 2 people could reasonably eat. "You didn't have to do all this," I said. "I know," he replied. "But I wanted to." "Coffee or tea?" "Coffee, please." He poured me a cup, and I noticed he'd already figured out how I took it. Light, no sugar. I must have drunk it that way at the reception. We ate breakfast in comfortable silence. He didn't try to fill the quiet with small talk. I appreciated that. I'd had enough small talk to last a lifetime. "I have to work today," he said eventually. "But you should make yourself at home. Explore the apartment. There's a study you might like. Lots of books. Use whatever you want." "What do you do?" I realized I didn't even know. "Import-export," he said. "Mostly between Spain and Korea. Some other Asian markets. It's not particularly exciting, but it keeps me busy." "Do you travel a lot?" "Sometimes. Not as much as I used to. I've been trying to stay more local the past few years." He left around 9, and I found myself alone in the apartment. I explored slowly. The study he'd mentioned was lined with bookshelves. I recognized some titles in Spanish, others in Korean, English, Japanese. He seemed to read widely. History, philosophy, novels, poetry. There was a desk by the window with a view of the street below. I could see people walking, going about their normal days. I wondered what my normal days would look like now. I spent the morning reading, then made myself lunch from the abundance of food in the kitchen. In the afternoon, I took a walk around the neighborhood. It was quiet, tree-lined, peaceful. There was a small park a few blocks away. A cafe on the corner. A bookstore that looked promising. Jun-suk came home around 6. He looked tired, but pleased to see me. "How was your day?" he asked. "Quiet," I said. "Good." I walked around a little. "Find anything interesting?" "A bookstore." "I might go back tomorrow." "You should," he said. "Do you want to get dinner somewhere, or should we eat in?" "In is fine," I said. "I can cook if you want." "Only if you want to," he said. We could also order something. We ended up cooking together. He was better at it than I expected, moving around the kitchen with easy confidence. We made pasta, simple but good. We ate at the table by the window and talked about small things. Books we'd read. Places we'd traveled. Nothing deep, nothing heavy. Just the slow process of learning about another person. That became our pattern. He went to work, I explored the neighborhood or read or sometimes met with a friend. We had dinner together most nights. Sometimes he had late meetings and I ate alone. Sometimes I had plans and he fended for himself. We were polite, considerate, careful with each other. A week passed. Then 2. Then a month. My father called occasionally to check in. The conversations were brief. Valeria called more often, bubbling with happiness about Claude, about married life, about everything being perfect. I listened and made appropriate noises and didn't mention that my own married life was nothing like what she described. Because Jun-suk and I weren't really married. Not in any meaningful way. We shared space, but not a life. We were friendly, but not friends. We were careful, but not close. I told myself it was fine. This was what I'd expected. Better than I'd expected, even. He was kind. He was respectful. He didn't demand anything from me. What more could I want? But something was shifting. Small things I barely noticed at first. The way he always remembered how I took my coffee. The way he'd pick up books he thought I'd like. The way he'd text me if he was going to be late so I wouldn't worry. The way he listened when I talked, really listened, not just waiting for his turn to speak. And the way I started looking forward to dinner. The way I'd find myself telling him about my day even when nothing particularly interesting had happened. The way I noticed when he looked tired and started making sure there was tea ready when he got home. We were becoming something. I wasn't sure what, but something. 2 months after the wedding, Valeria called crying. Claude had forgotten their anniversary. He'd gone out with friends instead. It was a small thing, she said, but it hurt. I made sympathetic sounds and told her these things happened. Inside, I thought about how Junsuk had remembered that I mentioned liking a particular type of tea and had ordered it special even though it was expensive and hard to find. 3 months in, my mother invited us to a family dinner. I'd been avoiding them but couldn't put it off forever. Junsuk offered to come with me for support. You don't have to, I said. I know family dinners aren't fun. I don't mind, he said. Besides, we're married. People will expect us to show up together. The dinner was exactly as awkward as I'd anticipated. My father was stiff. My mother was overly cheerful. Valeria and Claude were there, and watching them together was strange. They looked happy, but there was something performative about it. Like they were showing off for an audience. Claude barely spoke to me. Valeria monopolized the conversation, talking about their apartment, their plans, their life. Junsuk sat beside me, calm and present. He made polite conversation with my parents. He was gracious with Valeria. He didn't draw attention to himself, but he didn't disappear either. At one point, my father asked him about business. Junsuk answered clearly and concisely. My father looked impressed despite himself. On the drive home, Junsuk was quiet. Finally, he said, "Your family is complicated." I laughed. I couldn't help it. That's a polite way to put it. They don't see you clearly, he said. They see what they want to see. What they need to see. No, I agreed. They don't. I see you, he said quietly. For what it's worth. I looked at him in the dim light of the car. His profile was serious, his eyes on the road. I believed him. And that belief did something to my chest, made it feel tight and warm at the same time. Thank you, I said. He just nodded. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what he'd said. About being seen. About being known. I'd spent so much of my life being what other people needed me to be. Strong. Capable. Flexible. I'd forgotten what it felt like to just be myself. But with Junsuk, I was starting to remember. I started noticing more things. The way he'd moved his work schedule around so he could be home for dinner more often. The way he'd started keeping the tea I liked stocked. The way he'd leave little notes sometimes when he left early. Just simple things. Have a good day, or there's fresh bread if you want it. I started doing things too. Learning what he liked for breakfast. Picking up books in Korean from the bookstore. Asking about his day and actually caring about the answer. We started watching movies together in the evenings. He'd make popcorn and we'd sit on the couch with space between us, but less space than before. Sometimes our hands would brush when we both reached for the bowl at the same time. Neither of us pulled away. For months in, I realized I was happy. Not pretending to be happy. Not making the best of things. Actually, genuinely happy. I liked my life. I liked the quiet rhythm of our days. I liked the apartment and the neighborhood and the bookstore on the corner. I liked having dinner with someone who actually listened. I liked the way Junsuk never made me feel like I had to be anything other than exactly who I was. And I liked him. More than liked. But I didn't know what to do with that feeling. We'd built this careful, comfortable partnership. What if I wanted more and he didn't? What if I ruined the good thing we had by wanting something different? So I kept it to myself. And life went on. Valeria called less often. When she did call, she sounded strained. Tired. She didn't talk about Claude as much. Didn't gush about married life. I asked if everything was okay, and she said yes, of course, everything was fine. I didn't believe her, but I didn't push. 5 months in, Junsuk had a business trip. He'd be gone for a week. I helped him pack and tried not to think about how empty the apartment would feel without him. "I'll call when I land," he said at the door. "And I'll be back Friday." "Have a safe trip," I said. He hesitated, like he wanted to say something else. But he just nodded and left. The apartment was too quiet without him. I tried to enjoy the solitude, but I just felt lonely. I missed the sound of him moving around. Missed sharing meals. Missed the easy companionship we'd built. He called when he landed, like he promised. We talked for a few minutes. He sounded tired from the flight. I told him to get some rest. He called again the next day. And the day after that. Just quick conversations about nothing in particular. But they made me smile. On the 4th day, Valeria showed up at the apartment crying. Claude had cheated on her. She'd found messages on his phone. She didn't know what to do. I held her while she sobbed. Made her tea. Let her talk. She stayed for hours, cycling through anger and hurt and disbelief. "I thought he loved me," she said. "Everyone said we were perfect together." "I'm sorry," I said, because what else was there to say? "You're so lucky," she said, wiping her eyes. "Junsuk is so stable. So reliable. I should have married someone like that instead of someone exciting." I didn't point out that she'd taken the exciting option away from me. That Claude had been meant for me first. It didn't matter now. After she left, I called Junsuk. It was late for him, but he answered anyway. "Is everything okay?" he asked, and I could hear the concern in his voice. "Valeria just left," I said. "Claude cheated on her." He was quiet for a moment. "How is she?" "Upset. Confused. She'll be okay though. She always is." "How are you?" he asked. The question surprised me. No one ever asked how I was. They assumed I was fine. Strong enough to handle it. "I don't know," I said honestly. "It's strange. I was supposed to marry him. And now watching this happen from the outside, I just feel relieved." "Is that terrible?" "No," Junsuk said. "It's honest. You dodged something difficult. There's no shame in being glad about that." We talked for a while longer. About nothing important. About everything important. When we finally hung up, I felt settled in a way I hadn't before. I missed him. I wanted him to come home. Not because I needed him to fix anything or help with anything. Just because I wanted him there. That's when I knew. I'd fallen in love with my husband. The realization should have scared me. Instead, it felt like something clicking into place. Like finally understanding the punchline to a joke I'd been hearing for months. When Junsuk came home on Friday, I was nervous in a way I hadn't been since our wedding day. I'd cleaned the apartment even though it was already clean. Made dinner even though we could have ordered. Changed my clothes 3 times. He came through the door with his suitcase and his tired smile, and I felt my heart do something complicated in my chest. "Welcome home," I said. "It's good to be home," he replied, and the way he looked at me when he said it made me wonder if he meant the apartment or something else. We had dinner. Talked about his trip. Carefully avoided talking about Valeria and Claude even though the situation hung in the air between us. After dinner, we sat on the couch like we always did. But something was different. The space between us felt charged. Full of things unsaid. "I missed you," I said, because suddenly I needed him to know. "This week. I missed having you here." He turned to look at me. "I missed you too." "Did you?" I asked. "Or did you just miss having someone to come home to?" "You," he said firmly. "I missed you specifically. The way you hum when you're reading. The way you always put too much sugar in your tea even though you say you don't like it sweet. The way you wrinkle your nose when you're thinking hard about something. You, Isabella. My breath caught. Jun-suk. I know we didn't start this in any conventional way, he said. I know we agreed to a partnership, nothing more. But somewhere along the way, this stopped being just convenient for me. You stopped being just my wife on paper. And I thought you should know that. No pressure. No expectations. I just wanted you to know. I looked at him. Really looked at him. This man who had been so careful with me. So patient. So genuinely kind. This man who saw me, really saw me, and seemed to like what he saw. I love you, I said. Simple. True. I don't know when it happened exactly. But I do. I love you. The smile that crossed his face was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Slow and genuine and full of something that looked a lot like joy. Can I kiss you? He asked. Please, I said. He leaned in slowly, giving me time to change my mind. But I didn't want to. I wanted this. Wanted him. When his lips met mine, it felt like coming home. Gentle and sure and right. His hand came up to cut my face and I leaned into the touch. We kissed like we had all the time in the world. Like we were discovering something precious and wanted to savor every moment. When we finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine. I love you too, he said. I have for a while now. I was just waiting for you to get there. I laughed, almost giddy with relief and happiness. You could have said something. You needed time, he said. I wanted you to choose this. Choose me. Not because you felt obligated or because there was pressure, but because you wanted to. I choose you, I said. I choose this. I choose us. We stayed on the couch for a long time, holding each other, talking quietly about everything and nothing. About how this had happened. About what happened next. About the future we might build together. Eventually, we moved to the bedroom. The one I'd been sleeping in alone for 5 months. We laid down together, still dressed, just holding each other. Learning the shape of each other. There was time for everything else. Right now, this was enough. This was perfect. Over the next few weeks, Valeria's marriage continued to fall apart. She called me often, sometimes crying, sometimes angry. Claude was unapologetic. He didn't see what the big deal was. They'd had a fight and filed for divorce. My father called, upset about the scandal. About what people would say. He wanted me to talk to Valeria, help her see reason, save the marriage. No, I said. Isabella. No, I repeated. She deserves better than someone who doesn't respect her. Let her go. Let her find something real. He sputtered, but I hung up. Jun-suk, who'd been reading nearby, looked up with a small smile. Proud of you, he said. It felt good, I admitted. The divorce proceedings were messy. Claude fought over money, over possessions, over things that didn't matter. Valeria was devastated, but also, I thought, relieved. Like she was finally seeing clearly. 6 months after my wedding, there was a court date for their divorce settlement. I didn't plan to go. It wasn't my business. But Valeria called me the morning of, asking if I'd come. For support. Jun-suk offered to come with me. We drove to the courthouse together, his hand warm in mine. The hallway outside the courtroom was full of people. Lawyers, family members, curious onlookers. I saw my parents, looking uncomfortable. Saw Claude with his lawyer, looking annoyed. Valeria was sitting on a bench, looking small and tired. When she saw me, she stood up. Then she saw Jun-suk beside me, saw our joined hands, saw the way we stood close together. You look happy, she said, and there was something like wonder in her voice. I am, I said simply. I'm glad, she said, and I thought she meant it. I'm sorry, you know, for how everything happened. With Claude. I didn't mean to. I know, I said. It's okay. Really. Everything worked out the way it was supposed to. Claude walked past us into the courtroom. He didn't look at me. Didn't acknowledge Jun-suk. Just walked past like we didn't exist. Jun-suk squeezed my hand gently. "You okay?" he asked quietly. I looked at him. At his kind eyes and gentle smile. At the man who had somehow become my home. "Perfect," I said. "We didn't stay for the proceedings. There was no need. Whatever happened in that courtroom, it had nothing to do with us. We had our own life to live." On the drive home, Jun-suk asked what I wanted for dinner. "Whatever you want," I said. "As long as we eat together." He smiled. "Always," he said. "That's the plan. Always together." A year after our wedding, we had our own ceremony. Small, private, just us and a few close friends. We said the vows we'd written ourselves. Promised things we actually meant. Chose each other deliberately, joyfully, completely. My family came. Even my father, though he looked uncomfortable the whole time. Valeria came too, with a new lightness about her. She was dating someone new, someone who treated her well. She seemed genuinely happy for us. At the reception, Jun-suk pulled me onto the dance floor. We swayed together while music played, and he whispered in my ear, "Thank you for giving us a chance." "Thank you for being patient," I replied. "Always," he said. "For you, always." People sometimes asked us how we made it work. How we went from an arranged marriage to genuine love. I never knew quite what to say. Because it wasn't one big thing. It was 1,000 small things. Daily choices. Consistent kindness. The decision to see each other clearly and like what we saw. Jun-suk had a better answer. When someone asked him at a dinner party how he'd won me over, he just smiled and said, "I didn't try to win her. I just tried to make her life a little easier, a little happier. The rest happened naturally." And that was the truth of it. He'd given me space to breathe. To figure out who I was when I wasn't being what everyone else needed. To choose my own path. And I'd chosen him. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Because he made my life better just by being in it. Sometimes love happens dramatically, all fireworks and passion and big gestures. But sometimes it happens quietly. In shared meals and inside jokes and the comfort of coming home to someone who knows you. In patience and kindness and the daily choice to care for another person. My marriage started as an obligation. A sacrifice I made for family peace. But it became the best decision I never meant to make. Because Jun-suk taught me something important. That love doesn't have to be loud to be real. That the quietest hearts often love the deepest. That sometimes the best things in life are the ones we never saw coming. Years later, I still wake up grateful. Grateful that my father changed those plans. Grateful that I said yes even when I wanted to say no. Grateful for every small moment that led me here, to this life, to this love, to this man who sees me and chooses me every single day. People ask if I ever think about what might have been. If I wonder what my life would have looked like if I'd married Claude as originally planned. The answer is simple. No, I don't wonder. Because I know exactly what I would have missed. And I'm grateful every day that I didn't miss it. This is my story. Not the story I planned. Not the story anyone would have predicted. But mine. And it's better than anything I could have imagined. Because the best love stories aren't about finding someone perfect. They're about finding someone who makes you want to be better. Someone who sees your flaws and loves you anyway. Someone who turns an obligation into a joy. That's what Jun-suk gave me. And that's what I try to give him in return. Every day. In 1,000 small ways. Because that's what love is. Not a feeling. Not a moment. But a choice. Made over and over. To show up. To care. To try. And I choose him. Today and every day. For all the quiet, beautiful, ordinary moments that make up a life. That's worth more than any fairy tale.